Alright, so 1 year ago today, I purchased a 1996 Patrol with 500,000 Ks on it. Alright, so you guys all know this car. This is my 1996 GQ Patrol, and after owning it for 1 year, today we're going to be going through everything about it. We're going to be covering the good points, the bad points, all the mods I've done to it, and how much this old tractor's cost me. As you can see here, this is the major factor. Got it flexed up here. So, leaf suspension, being a DX, that's all they come with. How does it go? Well, in my opinion, it's fine. I can't imagine that having coils instead of leaves would have made my driving experience really any different unless I had some crazy ass setup. Driving around day to day, yeah, you might feel a couple bumps and the speed humps hit a little harder, but it's just stuff that at the end of the day doesn't really matter. It's more of a comfort thing. As you can see here, like this isn't any impressive amount of flex by any means, but it just gives an example that yes, it's leaf. Yes, it still can flex. It does go a little bit more than this. This is on stock suspension as well. But yeah, leaf suspensions, not as bad as a lot of people think. Yes, coils being just the better option, make them people think that these are a lot worse, but plenty of cars around there that get around with leaf suspension and they do the job just fine. Alright, so as we've covered many times before, TD42 blacktop, diesel, NA. So fuel economy, look, it's obviously not going to be as good as a new car. It is old. It is, worn in a sense. So I have 70 litre tanks. To those tanks, I get good Ks, highway Ks, 500 just over. Around town, anywhere from 450 around that mark. And then if it's really poor driving, you can look at anywhere from 400, around that mark. So it's nothing to brag about, even though people say diesels are for economy. This really isn't. It's an old car. It's not designed to be economic. Yeah, and obviously being an NA TD42, it's not a race car. I mean, it's shaped like a brick, so I don't think it was ever designed to be fast. But yeah, it might not be quick, but it goes up all the steep hills, no worries. And well, in low gears, if you're on the highway and you're in fifth, that's a bit of a different story. Back down to 70 Ks on the steepest ones. But if you don't care about that, that's just every now and again. It'll sit on 100, 110, no worries on the flat. It does it easy. It's just the overtaking when you're already up that high. It's even in all speed limits, overtaking is a struggle for this thing. But I don't know, it'll get me there and it'll get me home again, so yeah, that's alright. Alright, so the $1 million question is, what sort of maintenance can you expect to have to do when you buy a car with 500,000 Ks on it? So, we'll start with the engine. First thing when I bought it, it never used to really warm up, which still don't, I don't know if it was actually an issue or if it was just because I was used to being in petrols and stuff that got warmer a lot quicker. Who knows, but started coolant system. I had a bunch of sludge in it, so I cleaned the radiator out and everything. Had to change the overflow bottle, a few hoses and stuff. Replaced the thermostat, all radiator hoses and heater hoses. Did the belts, other maintenance that you've seen just recently. Water pump went, so I'm assuming that was factory. So 500,000 Ks out of a water pump. They probably have a service life by the manual, probably of 250,000 at most, I'd guess. So, it's expected that things like that are gonna fail. So, but that was an easy replacement. And yeah, other than that, just your basic services, being a diesel every 5,000 Ks. So I've only done a few services on it because I haven't driven that many Ks this year. Considering it has 500,000 Ks, I don't know what had been replaced in it before I bought it, but in a year, although I haven't done many Ks, I haven't had to replace anything else in the engine bay, nothing else major. But then again, being such a simple engine, there's not really a whole lot that can go wrong. So that's sort of one of the things, even though it has 500,000 Ks, other than the thing blowing up essentially or cooking, there's not really much else that can go wrong that's going to be really major. Alright, so the other side of maintenance, big one for this. So when I first bought the car, I didn't notice there was an issue with the swivel hubs, and that was because after we first did the first oil change, there was literally no oil in it, so it had just seeped out of the swivel hubs and been out of it for so long that it was all dried up. So anyway, after the first time putting oil in it, I noticed pretty quick that the swivel hub, particularly this side, was leaking very badly. Had oil all through on the inside of my wheel, through the guards. It's shocking. So that's another thing that can expect it to be changed on a car that's done 500,000 Ks. So full swivel hub rebuild, both sides, all the bearings, kingpins, all that sort of thing. It's not a small job, but it's one of those things that, yeah, you want to make sure is all good because that can cause problems if you let it go. All right, so the other part of this, we're just going to sort of run through everything I've sort of additionally added to the car just to improve the day-to-day driving, you know, comfort, all that sort of thing. Obviously, I put a photo on screen of what it was like when I first got it. It's pretty similar. It's pretty much the same. I haven't done anything groundbreaking. All right, so first off, King spotties. Yeah, didn't have spotties when I bought it, so I just chucked these on. They were, I mean, they're pretty cheap for the amount of light they put out. They're not like a good light in the sense that when you're driving at night, the reflection off signs is like crazy and it can be pretty harsh on your eyes. But if you want to see in the dark, bush roads, everything like that, for being the grouse. Next thing, aerials. You saw in the most recent videos, it's just gone on. The old aerial was absolutely cooked, so this has gone on. Great, now I get reception, radio reception, so I can listen to the radio. Next thing, bonnet protector, doesn't do anything to the car. I mean, it's meant to protect from stone chips, I suppose, but I mean, look at the paint, like stone chips really mattered. So that was just more of a cosmetic thing that came with the weather shields, the wind shields. So they're actually very good. I love these. I used to get so much wind noise in the cab before I put them on. Like, it was just like a hairdryer constantly, but these actually do a lot in deflecting wind. You'd be very surprised. Inside. Now, the major thing here, we didn't actually cover this in a video, but you would have figured it out by now anyway. Center console. This is like absolute game changer. For a lot of people like bench seats, but I don't know how I went without it for so long. I throw so much stuff in there, and this seat I've been told is a lot comfier than the bench seat. So that's like for driving around day to day, being able to store stuff, throw your phone in it, wallet, whatever. It's just like so much better. Other thing, obviously, you just saw speakers. That makes a huge difference to an old car that has factory speakers. Also in the center console, light switch. When you've got lights, it's good to have a good light switch. And speaking of lights, these lights are grouse. For eBay specials, you really can't go wrong. I use them a fair bit at night if I'm just wherever I am, if I'm camping or just need to get something out of the toolbox or the tray. You chuck them on and it's like daylight, it's grouse. Same goes for the reverse lights at the back. You saw us install these. They're good. They're actually not as helpful. Like, they are helpful. If my mirrors were better, they would be more helpful. Other thing you might have noticed following along, I did. This used to have big hoops, big steps. Yeah, they were functional as, don't get me wrong, they were grouse for getting in and out of the tray, but they looked, you know, pretty, I mean, they didn't look terrible, but they were really bad for clearance and stuff. Like, they rubbing them on like the walls, sort of banks all the time, which is good for protecting the cab, I suppose, but I figured the tray's that wide anyway, so, and it's because it's back here, it's not really doing that much, so chopped them off, got rid of them. But you know, I'm young, I can still just jump in the tray off the tire or something like that. So while we're here, might be worth covering. A lot of people ask questions about this snorkel. I believe it's just a factory option. Some people actually want them, but if I had my way, I'd get something different. I want a safari with a ram head. I want ram head for that extra air intake. I feel like it has to try too hard to suck, even though it's not making any big power or anything. I'd just rather a ram head. Oh, and another thing, if we circle around to this side of the car, just recently I have replaced, this is another thing you'll get on old four-wheel drives, driving in mud, all that sort of thing, inner guards. So mine were absolutely shot. They were, you know, falling apart, tearing. They kept coming off and they were rubbing on the side of the wheels, making really annoying noises. It was super loud in the cab. So we went to, everyone says go to Clark Rubber, but Clark Rubber are overpriced. So I went to Bunnings instead, and they had this stuff for like 33 bucks a meter. So we did 3 cars here. We did this car, my dad's car, and a Land Cruiser. All new rubber inner guards. Yeah, and they work grouse. It's heaps thicker. So it's like 3 mil compared to the old stuff. So you can high pressure it, all that sort of thing. Won't be putting holes through it. So that's actually a really good upgrade for old cars of all sorts. Another thing worth mentioning with a car that is old like this one is obviously the paint. So as you can see, this has got a fair bit of paint chip on it, which has turned into surface rust, and it is surface. It hasn't eaten its way into the panels yet, like badly, luckily. I mean, I suppose it's sort of what you'd expect from a car like this, you know, with a mixture of stone chips, and then that's just the paint slowly flaking away, and you know, you end up with stuff like this. Whether it's worth respraying, I don't really think so. A lot of you want us to do Raptor coating. I have been looking at Raptor, that sort of thing. A few people have commented about it, so let us know your thoughts on how it looks, that sort of thing, if you reckon we should do it. If so, what sort of color would you think? I'm not sure whether to just stick with white, good old white, or you know, if we were to change it up a bit. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on Raptor, because it could be a possibility. Alright, so on that note, as you can see, other than tires, I really haven't done anything that directly impacts the performance of the car off-road or in like power or anything like that. It's all just maintenance mainly, and you know, luxury things that, you know, make it driving it a bit nicer. So yeah, it's got 500,000 Ks, but it'll still do everything I want to do. I don't have to go and put, I mean, yeah, I want to get a lift and I would want to put a tab on it, but it's not necessary. It'll still go to the high country. It'll still, I mean, with a winch, it'll still do all the tracks pretty much. I mean, you can really take it anywhere. And being such a, you know, rough car, that's another thing too. I'm not worried about keeping it all straight. You know, if I get a few scratches, a few pinstripes. Dents are obviously something, you don't really want dents, but you know, worst comes to worst, if it happens, it's not a huge loss. So yeah, that's another aspect of getting an older car. Alright, so I really haven't put that much money into this car, other than tyres. Tyres aren't cheap. So unless you run road tyres on some other car, but four-wheel drive, you want tyres, generally speaking, if you want a decent tyre, they're going to be expensive. So not really factoring that into the equation, because every car you need to replace tyres essentially. Other than that, maintenance is the thing I've had to spend the most money on. Swivel hub rebuild kit is like, oh, I think it set me back like 500 bucks maybe. Yeah, and that's like the biggest lump sum of like money. Like everything else is just sort of, you know, smaller amounts here and there. But I suppose, yeah, if you did add it all up, it's going to be like, with the swivel hubs and this stuff, the lights, you're probably looking at, you know, I'll be generous and say $1,000 for all the different, everything like that. That's probably rough. Obviously, you add your tyres on top of that, you're adding like an extra 1,500 to 2 grand there. And rims as well, that is. But other than that, if I bought this car for 6 grand and say it already had a decent set of tyres, then you're only looking at like the grand to get it pretty reliable and, you know, comfortable to drive, which in my eyes is pretty good. Other thing that scares people, I suppose, from buying such high K cars is they think of the resale, because I mean, you're only going to put more Ks on it. Yeah, I've only put like 10 to 15,000 Ks, whatever it is on this. Stuff all, absolutely stuff all. But it's still a lot of Ks, 522 I think it's at. So for a lot of people, like, that might make people unwilling to buy it. But in saying that, I don't really think the value of the car has depreciated since I bought it. I think I could still sell it for what I bought it for easily, probably a bit more actually. So, you know, it's one of those things that the car itself, yeah, the engine might be old, I mean, but the car itself is still, you know, it's still the same car at the end of the day. It's not thrashed, I suppose. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. But it's worth as much as someone's willing to pay for it, which, if you find the right person, I think is more than you would expect. Alright, so that pretty much sums up, you know, this vehicle after my year of owning it. Now this isn't meant to be, this isn't like a rig rundown or anything like that. This is just, you know, if you buy a 4-wheel drive with high Ks, what can you sort of expect to be doing to it? What can you expect to have to maintain? You know, that sort of thing. So, you know, hopefully this sort of gave you a few ideas about high mileage 4-wheel drives. As always, if you enjoyed, give it a like. Comment below, get subscribed, and get yourself a sticker. AussieArvos.com, $5, shipping Australia wide. So yeah, cheers for watching.